see the outside, but white lies turn to purple elephants. How many times will I have to tell you it? I hope you know how to live with it, cause it's not going away. Don't try it on, don't try it on. White lies turn to purple elephants. Don't try, you'll become irrelevant. You can't train a purple elephant, give it a name and try to lock it away. But how can I take you seriously? You live with purple elephants. You think I'm being dramatic, it's the habit that'll drive you away. Yeah.
Hello there, and you are there, and I am here, and this is a little return of Killin Time. In fact, episode 22 of Killin Time. Took a wee break from these to do a couple of the transcribed episodes, which were in total 5 hours of Shane Mitchell's testimony over 3 days. If you've not had a chance to watch them, they are very long, but I would recommend that you have a wee look at them. It'll give you a better idea of, you know, what was actually said in court, rather than relying on what little the media had or what mistruths other people have had in relation to it. So that's there for all you guys if you want to watch it. Thanks to everyone who has, and thanks to all the new subscribers. This is a little kinny for the newer guys. This is kinny update that I would do when I found something that was a bit off, didn't make sense, or was just an out and out lie in terms of from Luke's Army. So these but today what I want to do is I actually want to really focus on Shane Mitchell's testimony. Now I obviously understand that I've just done 5 hours going through it all, but really I didn't want to put too much of my thoughts in it. Some people might think, you know, how can you make an update for what's normally around about 30 minutes just talking about this? But trust me, I could talk about this for hours in terms of just little bits that keep coming up. So today I want to kind of focus more in on my thoughts overall and leave the transcripts to that. So we'll try and do it this way and use Killin Time to share my thoughts. I do editorialise on the other videos, but again, just to compile everything and put in here. Plus, when I get a good chance to edit and listen through, there are other things that kind of spring to mind that I didn't get a chance to say when I was doing the initial recording. So let's have a look at that today. Obviously, if you haven't watched the transcript with Shane Mitchell's testimony, then it's a good kind of wee catch up here as well. But I've just got a couple of the things that I found to be an issue with it, and we can discuss it a little bit here. Now, obviously, there has been a lot that's happened since the last episode of Killin Time. Scott Forbes did a podcast.
So, what the pathologist tells you in discussion.
Mind the mic.
Jodie's decapitated, virtually decapitated. She's hanging.
It's decapitated, champ.
That lasted for round about 3 hours, and there's a couple of things in there that I'll probably cover at the end of this, along with Ms. Lean. I actually done a update yesterday at the time of recording. That's why this is a little bit late up, because I did want to kind of get that out of the way. It wasn't much to it, but there was a little element that I want to discuss at the end as well. So we'll do that, but this is mostly, as I say, Shane Mitchell's testimony, and we'll cover that off at the end. So let's get into it. So to repeat my kind of overall feelings in terms of Shane's mannerisms or his behaviour on the stand, should we say, I do feel that a lot of the questions that were aimed at him that could make him be seen in a negative light had a reason or an excuse or some kind of pushback when speaking to Alan Turnbull. For example, the chat about how the closing of sites would work and the computers itself, did notice that Shane was very vocal when it came to that. But obviously when it came to the inner workings of, you know, pictures being highlighted and made bigger on the site when we floated over them, he wasn't able to kind of pin down what happened there visually, which again is odd considering it was a site that he regularly visited, that he, you know, knew timings for closings and everything else and downloads and whatnot, but he couldn't tell you how the site worked. So when it comes to, the smaller detail, I don't think he wanted to give too much away in any case. Because again, one thing that would come into as well is his claim that the drug use that he had caused problems with his memory. So again, those things didn't align for me. I found it very strange that he knew all the workings of how this should work and that should work, but he couldn't remember what he had for his dinner. He could remember having it, and he was assuming it was before he went out. Now, Shane did say that he left the house after 6 o'clock. In other testimony which will come up and other things which have been claimed by both Kareem and Luke Mitchell, Shane had left shortly before Luke, who had actually left the house around 20 to 6, in his words, to meet Jodie Jones. So the timings didn't add up in that sense. There's a little bit more of that we'll actually go into as well. But obviously with Shane's testimony itself, the first part that we done, it did cause a little bit of a ruckus, so to speak, in several of Sandra Lean's groups. I will talk about that later on as well, because during her update she kind of answered a few of my questions which I had been putting to her over the last few months. So I would like to go into that a little bit, to be fair. But as I say, with the idea that, that Shane's testimony, I think it was to protect him, essentially. Just kind of sum it all up. I think he was caught out lying, and then he was in a position where he didn't want to really, ostracise or put his mum in a position where she would then be culpable for anything. But at the end of the day, he didn't want to be culpable. So I think come April 14th, when he was arrested and charged with perversion of the course of justice, I think that's when everything kind of fell apart and he just had to start telling the truth. And in that interview, he did say that he was 80% sure Luke was not in the house. Now, as I was going to say, the furor that was caused, or the ruckus that was caused, was when people started talking about Shane Mitchell's testimony, because there was two elements. Shane didn't put Luke in the house, Luke and Kareem didn't put Shane in the house. So that did cause a little bit of a kind of uproar, and there was, as I said in the last video and transcribed, there was people actually blocked and banned and kicked out of the group for discussing it. These things I will go into the end of the video as well, but with this I think it was quite an eye-opener for some in terms of what they've been told before of what was said and what was done, because now we have an out there public record of what was actually said and done, and it doesn't match up with both fictional books by Sandra Lean and Scott Forbes. So let's look at one or a couple of the elements for me that kind of showed Shane in a bad light, and I'll do a little wrap up at the end with the podcast appearances from the big bunny ears here, experts, the Carnies. The first element is something that I've actually already spoke about, which is the fact that Luke Mitchell and Kareem Mitchell didn't put Shane Mitchell in the house during their dinner. The interview with Luke Mitchell and Kareem Mitchell was taken on the 4th of July 2003, a couple of days after the murder of Jodie Jones. Now, Shane had actually corrected his statement a little bit after that. So on the 4th of July, Luke Mitchell and Kareem Mitchell, when asked if Shane was at home for tea, Luke had said in the quote, Shane wasn't in, was he? Or Shane wasn't, was he? Was his exact words when talking about who was in the house. Kareem Mitchell then confirmed that by saying no. The strange thing about that is the 7th of July interview with Shane Mitchell, he was advised by his mum that he was in the house for dinner. So 3 days prior to that, Corinne Mitchell had put her son outside the house. Now, was there some kind of discussion as to what was the best way forward, considering, I don't know, maybe Shane had said, I was in the house, I was on the computer, so Corinne's had to come up with something else. That's my speculation. But from the 4th of July, with both Luke and Corinne putting him out the house, to the 7th of July, him being advised that he was in the house by Corinne Mitchell, has really put a kind of spanner in the works in terms of the story. And I think obviously big neon flashing signs for, the authorities when they looked at that. Now, also during the interview on the 4th, Luke had been asked about the phone call that Shane Mitchell had made to the household from his friends when he was looking to, or before he was looking to fix the car. It was around about 20 past 4ish in the afternoon. Shane had said that he'd spoke to Luke, and he'd said, obviously, what his plans were, we got there in the end. He said what his plans were, and that he would obviously be home for dinner, and we wanted to know what time it was. In the interview between Luke, Corinne and the police, Luke had said that Shane said he would be home later during that phone call. Again, just total contradiction of what Shane's testimony said and what actually happened, and what was proven with phone records and computer records from the internet history. So that was something that stood out quite a lot, and again, that's the name of this episode. I think the changing the stories from Shane to put Luke in the house and having dinner with him, only then to change it to 80% sure he's not in, is more signs that there was a concocted story by, I believe, Corinne Mitchell to protect her son. That's what I believe. That's my firm speculation here. I think that she brought Shane in to try and back up Luke and make this a wee bit more of a watertight alibi, but it ended up going totally wrong because of what had been said before. I mean, it sounds a bit of a cruel way to put it, but Luke not putting Shane in the house stands out a lot more for me. A 3-bedroom house, and just 2 guys that would be wandering about the house, and perhaps a dog as well. Let's not forget there's a dog there who interacted with the dog. So yeah, how can I put it? Right, there's no nice way to put it. If Luke Mitchell can find a girl's body in a darkened woods with a torch and a semi-trained dog, how can he not find his big brother in a 3-bedroom house in the middle of the day? The reality is that can't be true. There's no way that, someone anecdotally on X had said that they had a son that was in the house and they had no idea he was there when he'd been in the house for a little while, to which I asked, did you actually happen to have dinner with him? And he didn't notice you were there. So those things, it doesn't add up. There's no way someone made dinner for someone else without both of them knowing that each other was in the house. That is just ridiculous. So one of the bigger elements for me was the fact that Shane did not match Luke, and Luke and Corinne did not match Shane. Let's not, at the end of the day, 4 days after Jodie Jones' murder, they were putting Shane outside the house. And 3 days after that, Corinne had asked him to put himself back in the house. So, if anything, I think they mucked up for themselves. Maybe they should have came up with a better plan before the first interview, and then they wouldn't have made so many mistakes. I want to put 2 elements kind of together because I do think they're linked in that sense, and that's Shane's claims of memory problems. I do think that, again, rewriting the whole thing just to make himself look a little bit less culpable. But one glaring example of it for me, what I'll show you here, I'll actually just show a couple of clips from the transcribed video. Just to explain it quickly, the first clip is questioning from Donald Finlay to Shane around the use of the computer and his memory of it. Then the second bit will be the re-examination from Alan Turnbull, where he just looks to clarify what Shane had said to Donald Finlay and what he'd said to himself earlier on that morning. So just play these clips. I can't even speak. Brilliant lead-in. Always have a brilliant lead-in. As I say, play these clips quickly and I'll see you on the other side. Question. You told me you'd left the room, so how can you remember you leave the room and then you say, I can't remember, and then the other policeman, he comes in and says, how do you remember logging into the site, and what is your answer to the police? Shane says, because you've told me about it. Because you've told me about it. So in April of last year then, you couldn't remember logging onto the site, you remembered because the police had told you, and Shane agrees again. Towards the end, that in April of last year, you couldn't remember logging on, and you only agreed with that because the police told you. Remember that? At the time, yes. But you know, Mr. Mitchell, when I said to you, why did you mention before to the police that you had been watching porn, you didn't say it was because I'd forgotten and it was only when the police reminded me that I remembered. You said because it's not something you want to broadcast, because I was embarrassed. That's what you said to me, didn't you? Yes. Now right away we can see there that, you know, different reasons given at different points in the same day, which right away for me again shows how untrustworthy everything was in terms of what he remembered. Another thing though that I don't know if maybe Alan Turnbull missed it or he didn't think it was relevant, but Shane did actually give two different reasons to Donald Finlay as to why he didn't make the police aware of his usage of the internet that day. And as I say, I don't know if Alan Turnbull missed it, but here's the other reason that Shane gave. Heads up, sorry about the quality of the audio on this, wee problem when I was recording it, but you'll get the gist of it. And as you have told the jury, for reasons which no doubt as the ladies and gentlemen of the world they can understand, you were reluctant to go into detail about the internet session. Shane says, I didn't think it was relevant. Absolutely. So there you have it. 3 different reasons given for the same thing on the same day between 2 different people questioning Shane. We have the fact that he thought it was embarrassing, he thought it was irrelevant, and he didn't remember until the police told him. So, which one? There's 3, as again, I don't know why Alan Turnbull didn't spot that one, but that one's there as well. Irrelevant is, can I just say irrelevant? You find it irrelevant that you have what is an alibi on the day that someone was murdered in your close to your house. So you didn't think it was relevant that you were doing something and you could prove it. I find that a very odd statement. Surely you would be trying to remember what you were doing, so how is it irrelevant? It's just excuse making, and for me it just shows the dishonesty. Even when he was half telling the truth, still dishonest throughout, just looking to protect his own back, in my opinion. But that's again speculation from me, but that's what I found with a lot of it. In terms of the memory as well, I do think that was concocted, and I do believe as well it was quite well done by Alan Turnbull during the re-examination. There was one element that I think blew the memory theory out of the water. I'll play that clip actually just now. Do you remember that you pointed out to me, you said, wait a minute, have I ever said that I heard music? Do you remember you pointed that out to me? Yes. Yes, and I pointed out because I was wondering why you were asking me about music all the time. He says, exactly. Well, you see, I know why I'm asking you about that, and the ladies and gentlemen probably do as well. But the point is, Mr. Mitchell, you knew that in all of those interviews and all of the hours of discussions you had with police, you had never said to them that you had heard music being played. Isn't that right? Yes. That's what you pointed out to me. And you were correct. Your memory has been pretty good on that, in that matter, hasn't it? He says, well, see, the days interviewed by the police were quite memorable. As opposed to the day of the murder, which wasn't very memorable at all. Yes. In all honesty, I do believe that Shane firmly put his foot in it by doing that. Because that shows he had a good recollection of what was going on during interviews. There's no confusion as to what he had to remember, when he remembered, and everything else. I think that's more protecting himself on the stand after the fact. The reality is, if you look at this, then it shows you he had no problem with that part of his memory. He had no problem remembering that he was fixing someone's car, that they weren't there, that he had conversations with members of their family, that he had phoned and spoke about, what the plans were, the idea that he somehow got home, didn't see Luke made him dinner. So again, it was the idea as well, he didn't remember that Luke had... It was when Donald Finlay was questioning him, the memory was a real problem. During the issue, during the time with Turnbull, I would say that he had more of a clapback than a memory issue, especially in areas where he was looking to protect himself for the more embarrassing questions. But with Donald Finlay, it became a problem with prior drug use, and a lot was kind of put down to that in his questioning. What Donald Finlay did do as well is paint Shane in the light of the victim, in terms of he spoke about the arrest that he had on April 14th, the fact that he was, shouted at, that he was asked questions, that he was kept at a place, a roadblock, the amount of police that were there, the fact that he was on his own with the police. There were just a number of different things, the length of the actual question in itself. So there was no real detail covered, but there was a lot of circumstance, which was meant to paint the picture. I think if they went into the detail with Donald Finlay, then he would have found himself down a road that he couldn't back out of. Because, again, the April the 14th interview where Shane said he was 80% sure Luke wasn't in the house was his most recent recollection. We didn't talk about that one really. And there was a couple of times during questioning where Donald Finlay actually said we won't pry too much into that, which I think is very telling as well. At those points, that was about the pornography and things like that, so I think he just wanted to avoid it as much as he could and just really look at the elements that he could twist and make Shane look more human, for want of a better word. And I think the glaring example of that was a random question by Donald Finlay towards the end, where he asked Shane about his relationship status and confirmed that he was getting engaged. It really did take Shane out of the game as well, because when he said it, Shane's reply was pardon, because it came from nowhere and it wasn't followed up on. He asked him if he was engaged, he said yes. He asked him what the lady's name was, he informed him, and then they moved on straight away. There was nothing there, and I think that's the kind of trying, as I say, make people out to look more the victim in that sense. But Donald Finlay's question was very poor on this for me as well, and done nothing but serve up a kind of gotcha moment, I suppose you could call it. Perry Mason moment, I think, was the way Roberta Glass put the Corinne Mitchell questioning. If you don't watch Roberta Glass, by the way, go and watch her podcast. She done one recently on Corinne Mitchell. I might put that in the description below, actually, link to that. So, there was a couple of moments there where it was like those gotcha moments, and I think the memory one, that's definitely one. Confirming the fact that he had given two different, which turned out to be three, which one was missed, three different reasons as to why I didn't tell the police about watching porn. There's lots more as well. We could go through the list of things that he remembered and then the list of things he somehow forgot, but the ones that he forgot all related to what Luke was doing. Let's nail that one down, because didn't remember who was there for dinner, didn't remember what he had for dinner, couldn't really be 100% all sure on the time, but knows he had it before he went out, and didn't see Luke in the house. So those were the things he couldn't remember. The things he could remember was everything else. So his memory was selective. That was the way I put it in the videos before, and that's the way I'll keep on thinking about it. Very selective. I do think, obviously, it was tainted by Killin Mitchell. We have to really look at the fact that on the 4th, during questioning, Killin and Luke put him outside the house, and he'd asked him to put him back in the house when he corrected his statement on the 7th of that month, 7 days after the murder of Jodie Jones. So Shane is all over the place in terms of what he had said on the stand. What else did you guys see? Put it in the comments below if you can. Even if you want to list off things he could remember and things he couldn't remember, because it makes for an interesting... I could have probably sat and done it, to be honest, but I'm not going through that 5 hours again. I have to listen to those videos more than once when I'm editing. I can't do it again. It was hard enough to get the clips that I've got. So, yes, oh brother, where art thou? Luke Mitchell did not put Shane in the house, neither did Killin Mitchell. And come the 7th of July, Shane put himself in the house. Come the 14th of April the next again year, Shane put Luke outside the house. 80% sure he wasn't there. The 80% is a very good number. I think that again is kind of playing both sides, but in reality you would know if someone was in the house. If you're interacting with your mum's interacting with them, you're all having dinner, there's a dog running about, you're not telling me that you don't see someone's not there. That's just ridiculous. The memory thing, again, ridiculous. But what else did you guys see, or what else did you notice that just didn't make sense to you? That's just a couple of things. Honestly, I could keep going, but I don't think we want to make these videos as long as the transcribed videos, and I do want to cover off one thing from Sandra Lean's latest Appear It Live video, and one element of the 5-0 podcast, with premeditated part podcast, with Scott Forbes. Just one part of that as well, and then we'll wrap it all up. So I want to skim over a couple of quick things. I probably will do another update looking at the whole podcast of Scott Forbes on premeditated part, because there's a lot to go into, but there's one bit I want to get covered today. What I'll do is I'll show that clip and I'll come back and kind of go through it, because I think if I pre-explain what's going on here, then it might be more confusing to the listener. This, however, does go back to an old episode of Killin Time, way back in Killin Time 9, the episode That's Not a Knife. So we did have a wee recap on that one as well, so here we go. This is like the trilogy. Let's go back and revisit this one.
But here's the critical thing. If you find yourself dealing with an unexpected backstory and a preponderance of exposition, then the sequel rules do not apply, because you are not dealing with a sequel. You are dealing with the concluding chapter of a trilogy.
Is this 666? Jodie Jones is on a date and Nirvana. I get confused with music. Nirvana. Right, a verse for Nirvana. So they found the pouch and they used this against him. That it was a devil worship into Nirvana and all that, and they couldn't find the knife. His mother gave it to the police. Now I got this wrong in the past or whatever. Allegedly, his mother. So he's got two, right? They've got one and they find the pouch for the second one, but they can't find the knife, so they call it the missing knife. The mother hands it to his lawyer. I've just learned recently, seen the night before the trial. So there's no missing knife, right? I've got two of them. But imply in the paper that's how this missing knife could be the murder weapon. Listen, I'll just tell you. Before Jodie's killed, she was strangled. Jodie was strangled unconscious, rendered unconscious, right? But she was punched and kicked and dragged about with the hair and whatever. Nobody knows if she was stripped first or stripped after, all that stuff. Right? None was investigated.
Because true trilogies are all about going back to the beginning and discovering something that wasn't true from the get-go. Godfather, Jedi, all revealed something that we thought was true that wasn't true.
So to those who are new to this, or may have forgotten, Mr. Forbes, on a previous appearance on Premeditated Patter, had said that the knife in question, the missing knife, was in police possession all along. When questioned about it, Luke pointed out if they had a photo of it, then that meant they had possession of it. So Scott Forbes had actually already put that knife in the police possession. And there you hear that he says that they'd made a mistake, and there was in fact 2 different knives, one all along in police possession, the missing knife handed in the day before the court case started for evidence. So there's an element of truth and a lot of untruth in this, and it's an evolution of a lie, which again we've covered in other episodes as well. Building on the lie, the idea here has changed somewhat. Now, just to put this here and make this clear once and for all, which again we always give people the out. So Mr. Forbes either does not understand or is lying. Everyone gets the out. You have to pick one though. You do not understand and you've not actually looked into what you're saying, or you're intentionally lying. So with this, the knife that was handed in to the police that was used in the court case was a black-handled skunting blade. Now, I think it's a clever sleight of hand. Scott Forbes there shows you a wooden-handled skunting blade, which is the knife that is missing. Now, Luke Mitchell had this wooden knife that was seen, and we'll go into it in Transcribed, was seen by several witnesses before the death of Jodie Jones. But the knife that was handed in to the police the day before the case started wasn't a wooden-handled Jack Pike knife. It was not the knife that people recognised seeing. So there's 2 different knives indeed. That element is true. One was handed in during, just before the court case started, but the other one is still missing. Now, this has always been the case, and it's easily confirmed that it was a wooden-handled Jack Pike knife that the police were looking for. I believe a couple of years after, I read a media article, but maybe several years after, there was a knife found on the grounds of the high school, which I believe was tested as well. That indeed had the wooden handle, because that's what they'd always been looking for, was a blade with a wooden handle, not the black plastic handle that had been handed in just before the court case started. So this is an evolution of a lie, and I think we need to put this one to bed. The idea that there's 2 different knives is correct, but there has always been one of those knives missing. There was one handed in and one missing. Now, this is fact. You have to pick one here, Mr. Forbes. You're either intentionally not understanding, well, you don't understand, sorry, and you're not looking into it and your own research, or you're just lying. Because the fact is, the wooden-handled Jack Pike hunting knife, skunting blade, was never found. And the replacement was something that brought up red flags for the police, because it was bought after the murder and the receipt was found in the household. So they believe that knife was bought to look like the same knife and replace that missing one. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense. I wish there was sense. Where did all this sense go?
But he continues the lie because he has to evolve it so he can, look like he's still in the right. Anyone who's in any doubt, just look at this one point, this one missing knife point, to see how much nonsense comes out of Scott Forbes about that. But that's the one part I want to cover for that. I will do an update on the whole podcast. I'm looking at some other things that I want to do with the podcast as well, to make it a wee bit more entertaining for me and people watching these. Looking at a couple of ideas of that, but leave that with me. For now though, we'll leave the Scott Forbes nonsense, and I want to cover 2 quick things with Sandra Lean, and then we're all done. The first bit I want to really talk about with Ms. Lean is actually the subject matter of this video, and it's the testimony of Shane Mitchell. Now, did put a little thing from the Jibber Jabber podcast on the Transcribed video where she spoke about Shane, but as I said on that video, it's rare that she'll go into any great detail when concerned with it. But there was something that, going back after the fact, I mean, it stood out beforehand because I did make a video about it, but it was even more glaring after the, going through the transcripts itself. what I want to do is just quickly show a little appearance of Sandra Lean on the James English podcast when talking or asked about Shane Mitchell, and we'll come back and have a quick discussion about it.
Wasn't it?
What was his alibi?
That he was at home cooking dinner.
And his brother was there as well?
No, his brother was working. Luke made the dinner for his mum and his brother because he was first in from school. Can he back that alibi up other than his mum and his brother? To an extent, yes, because phone calls were made from and received on the landline. And we can prove for certain where his mother was, and it was not at home, and we can prove for certain where his brother was, and it was not at home. So somebody had to be in the house making calls and receiving calls on that landline.
You'll see there, that is a twisting of what we can prove and what we know to be true to fit a narrative for Sandra Lean. Phone calls made to and from the house. We have a couple of phone calls made that will be talked about as well during Corinne Mitchell's testimony, which don't coincide with the time of death of Jodie Jones. Now, what does coincide with the time is Shane Mitchell's internet history. Now, you'll hear there that Sandra Lean said that Shane was at work. He wasn't even at work. He'd finished work round about 3 p.m. and he was at a friend's. Now, again, the whole timings, everything in terms of that, the phone calls that were made to and from the house couldn't have been made when Shane was on the internet. We already know that can't happen. It was dial-up internet. You can't use the phone at the same time. The phone calls that Sandra Lean puts as an alibi for Luke came well before the time of death, and we can see that on the records. However, you will see there as well that Sandra Lean says that we can show where everyone is, and it's not in the house. Shane was in the house, and we can show he is the only one that we can show was in the house. So it's a weird take on the whole testimony for Shane Mitchell. Let's just be honest, she's just rewriting it to fit her narrative and her needs. We'll go back to it again. Luke didn't put him in the house. Shane didn't put him in Luke in the house. Corinne didn't put Shane in the house until the 7th. So it's a nice wee rewriting of what actually happened there by Ms. Lean. She has a habit of doing things like that, as does Mr. Forbes, as you can see by the evolution of the lie and the trilogy of knife chat. So that's just one thing I've got to cover here quickly in terms of what Sandra Lean has to say about it. But I do want to do a more in-depth killing time on both her latest update and Mr. Forbes' 5-0 appearance. The 5-0 appearance more so because there's so much to that. So let's cover a wee element of what Sandra Lean had in her last update, do our final wrap up, and I will let you get on with the rest of your day.
Say, get the fuck out of here!
As I say, I want to do a more in-depth one on the whole update and lots of claims that were made by Sandra Lean, but I did want to just quickly fire through a couple at the end here before we do a wrap-up. In the video that Sandra Lean put up recently, she spoke about there being no tolerance for certain behaviours within the groups, and she would just get people chucked out. And now people have said that that is an aspect of bullying and silencing. That's true. Sandra Lean can make all the excuses she wants for her lives, and all the followers and marks of her carny behaviour can, lap it up, buy another token, have another shot in the ride, and then ultimately get, again, we love doing it, but ultimately get fucked, because that's essentially what Sandra Lean's looking to do, is just manipulate people. I think she uses a lot of her old techniques when it comes to her history and hypnotising and all that nonsense, or kind of healing witchy stuff. I don't know what you call it. I'm totally ignorant to it all, but crystals and all that bollocks. Anti-vaxxer who believes in crystals can't fucking, honestly, you couldn't fucking write that. So yeah, I think, as I say, the bullying, that's absolutely true. I've got things, and you know, I'll maybe go into a wee bit more in depth. I have evidence of bullying and silencing in the groups. Even if you were to go on something like X, you'll see people talking about it, and these people still believe that Luke Mitchell is innocent, but they were turfed out the group for asking particular questions which raised some little kind of red flags for themselves. The way you deal with that, obviously, just get rid of them. Don't in any way explain yourself, just get them to fuck, which is amazing. It's a brilliant way of behaving. It really it just sums it all up. It is about silencing, even to the point where I'm being threatened as well. So they're looking to silence me. Why would they want to do that? Why would they want me silenced? Strange. So other couple of elements that I do want to cover just before I wrap up. Sandra Lean had said as well that she has nothing to do with finances, and I will put this here one more time. Don't care how many times she says she has nothing to do with them, ultimately the buck stops at her. There is no one else collecting this money and giving this money to anyone else but Sandra Lean. All the Linktree, all the TikToks and everything are still in her name when it comes to donating, so absolute nonsense. It is probably the oldest con in the book from any corny to say that they distance themselves financially. That doesn't mean they're not benefiting financially. That means there's no paper trail to them to do what they have done. They've just received it. But the last point that I do want to bring up, and it's quite a blatant one, it's quite a bold one, it's quite a quick one, and I'm really dragging it out. During the chat with the update that Sandra Lean had, she spoke about the accusation which I made, probably some other people made as well, that she was well aware of the samples being destroyed, which caused such an uproar within Luke's army, and she'd been made aware of it some 18 months before Scott Forbes was. Scott Forbes talked about it on the podcast with Sean Tolan's Social Sessions, which was a goddamn task. But he spoke about it on that, the fact that someone had came to him and made him aware, and someone also had been made aware months ago. Myself and some other people kind of put two and two together, realised who that person would have been, and just flat out said, you know, Sandra Lean, I believe my exact words were, you done fuck all about it. I'm sure she heard it, judging by some of the answers that we got on the update, or at least she had it fed back to her. Hi Sandra. But the reality is, she did say there was nothing she could do. What could she do? What would you expect her to do? So the way of getting out of the fact that she done nothing was say, I am just a small David fighting the Goliath. What was I meant to do? Well, I've got an easy answer. If you managed 18 months after the fact to get all this stuff, all the destruction of evidence, halted, why couldn't you have done it before? Come on, explain that one. If the people that are there just now were able to stop any productions being destroyed, why did you not go to them at the time and ask them to do it then? I will go back to it. The reason that didn't happen is because A, there was nothing untoward or illegal about the particular items being destroyed. From what I hear, some of the items were actually personal items and they seem to have been returned to families. So, destruction of evidence, returning of items, all getting conflated here. Some of them, I suppose, in destruction terms, in terms of the timeline as well, no. There is no active proceedings. There has not been for several years. There is a time frame in terms of destruction of evidence, and it falls within that in terms of live proceedings. So, again, there wasn't anything that you could do because it was perfectly normal, but what you did look to do was benefit off it by handing in the petition, and then the uproar thereafter that coincided oh, it was all such one big coincidence. The documentary came out, we handed in a petition, and they started destroying evidence. No, you used that to your advantage. I know some people will still believe a lot of the lies that she said on her update, and I'll go into it a wee bit more in depth, but as you can see, we're over 40 minutes here just covering these couple of quick things. So let's take about 40 minutes or so on each appearance for Scott Forbes on Premeditated Patter and for the latest Sandra Lean live update. Let's do a little wrap up, guys. Thanks for watching this, by the way, but let's do a wee wrap up, and then you can definitely be on your way. So again, thank you very much to all the new subscribers, the new listeners. If you are new to this, just pop a hello in the comments below. Be good to speak to some new folks. I imagine, folks, tell everyone that has been here since the start, or since near the start, thank you for coming back, guys. The loyal guys get a two thanks. Sorry, guys. But yes, all the guys that have been here from the start as well. We could do with some new faces, some new names. So let us know what you think down below. What do you think of Shane Mitchell's testimony? What do you think of Sandra Lean's take on Shane Mitchell's testimony? Just in general, what do you think of Scott Forbes' evolution of lies when it comes to the knife? I think next up we'll do one on Scott Forbes, and then we'll do a more in-depth one on Sandra Lean. As I say, if you go back and watch some of the old videos, you'll see some of the things that did not make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I wish there was sense. Where did all this sense go?
But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your ear. Thank you in advance for the little sarcastic thumbs up that you're going to give this video. If you got this far, come on, wee thumbs up. Wee thumbs up. Wee sarcastic thumbs up. Yeah, as I say, subscribe if you want to keep up with us. We're Transcribed episode 3, looking at the first part of the question of Corinne Mitchell, will be out soon, as well as 2 more planned Killin times with Sandra Lean's last update and Scott Forbes' latest podcast appearance. Yes, leave us a little comment down below, but do not be a derek. You can follow us on X. We are on Facebook, but I keep on saying I'm terrible at it. Probably better getting us on X. Yes, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
White lies turn to purple elephants. How many times will I have